Do you want to know why kids need grandparents? Because they definitely do. I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach parenting and good communication all over the world through the lens of self-government. And in this video, I'm talking about the vital role of grandparents. Grandparents play a vital role in the physical, social, emotional, and intellectual development of their grandchildren, and they may not even recognize that. In this video, we're going to be talking about why grandchildren need their grandparents, what they bring to the table for that child, and we're going to talk about how grandparents impact the social, emotional, intellectual, and physical lives of their grandchildren. Maybe you haven't considered before how your grandparents helped form you, but if you think about it, you think about whether you had a relationship with grandparents or didn't, that actually made a difference in who you became. My grandparents had a vital role in my life. In fact, I had different relationships with each set of grandparents. I knew my grandparents on both sides of the family and even some of my great-grandparents, and I had unique relationships with each of them. In fact, I can pinpoint key lessons that I learned from my life because of each of them. There were certain things I thought, I'm probably not going to do that. But in most cases, I thought to myself, I want to do that, just like Grandma so-and-so, or she is so patient. How did she become that patient? I want to be that patient. Or he's so fun. I like being with him. He makes me feel important. He teaches me things. Or she likes to play with me. I want to be an adult that plays with her children. There were things that I gained in my heart and in my mind just from being with my grandparents. I remember my great-grandmother, and she had these glass figurines. They were very old. They were each like a month. They were like girls for the month of the year, and they were very old-fashioned. She had them sitting on a special shelf in a cabinet in her house, and I would go and visit her, and I would look at these dolls, and she would say, Nicholeen, let's get them out and play with them. Now, my mother would have never let me play with a porcelain figurine as a toy, as a doll, but my great-grandmother did. And she taught me how to play with them very carefully and how to have little tea parties with them. And so I would play with the dolls, and then we would put them back very carefully. Then there was a time where I came to her house and we played with the dolls. And then she said, Nicholeen, would you like the doll with your birthday month? You can take that doll home with you. Wow. That meant so much to me. It was a reminder of all of those play dates with my grandma, of sitting there and feeling trusted by her, and her teaching me how to play with her special things that she had kept her entire life. I'm sorry I get emotional when I think about it. I love that woman, my great-grandmother Mary. She actually told me at one point in time, I was probably about 10 years old, and she said to me, Nicholeen, look at this picture of me when I was 15, and look at this picture of you at 10. We look the same. She said, I've got some good news, and that is that I used to look a lot cuter than I look now. And I've got some bad news. This is what you're going to look like when you're an old woman. And I looked at her and I thought, well, I'll take it. She's the nicest old woman I've ever met in my life. If I can be as happy as her and spread as much goodness as her, I want to do that. And I looked at that picture and thought, that's what I'm going to look like when I'm 15, and I was so excited about it. But she bonded with me in a special way. She told me I was like her. She told me all kinds of things that I could become, and I wanted to become her. Do grandparents nowadays recognize that they instill identity into their grandchildren? They do. They need to play an active role in the lives of their grandchildren so that their children and grandchildren can better know who they are and who they want to become. The heroes of today, the idols or icons, do not give the young children much to look up to. Just fame, money, fashion, maybe a little social or political power, but nothing that's truly powerful, nothing that's heart-changing, life-changing, nothing that will be something they can be proud of when they're done. When you pass on your characteristics to another person, when you teach them your very character, when they become a better person because they knew you, then you truly have changed the world. And grandparents have a unique ability to do that. Grandparents also can help change childhood behaviors in ways that sometimes parents can't. I'm going to talk about the different ways that grandparents impact their grandchildren's lives, but before I do that, I actually have a free gift for you. I would like to give you a free copy of my best-selling book, Parenting a House United. This book came out in 2009. This is the second edition, which came out in 2020. And I would like to give it to you for free, plus a little cost for the shipping. There is a link in the description below this video that you can click on and get the free book to help you and your grandchildren have better communication and to have a better bond and relationship. So let's talk about physical development. How do grandparents help their children with their physical development? Well, I don't know about you, but I worked with my grandparents. I worked in the garden with Grandpa. I canned fruit with Grandma. I would stay at their house and I would help them clean. These were all physical things that we did together. We would go on walks and look for bugs and leaves. They would get out their old toys like skateboards that they used for my parents and they would teach us how to use them. These were all things that my grandparents did to teach me that part of life is living a physical life. My grandpa had a boat, and he also taught all of his grandchildren to water ski. Grandpa taught all of us to water ski. I remember standing on the side of a lake with Grandpa holding me in his arms and saying, keep your legs like this, and holding the rope and saying, okay, now here we go. And he taught me how to water ski behind his boat. He taught me that being strong was good. It was important, and that I needed to learn to swim and stay physically fit. All of these things I can say were more important to me because Grandpa even did them in his old age. So, do grandparents help their children develop physically? Yes, by staying active. If a grandparent is active or shares stories of their past life when they were more active, shows pictures, it will teach the grandchildren what type of a life they should expect to have if they prepare properly. Obviously, eating habits also matter. Grandparents notoriously give treats, I know. In fact, there's nothing wrong with giving a treat to a child, but I think grandparents should also honor good, healthy eating habits and serve their grandchildren healthy things too. And when the parents are trying to teach the child about healthy food, definitely support the parents in that as well. So let's talk about intellectual development. When grandparents are reading and discussing important things with their grandchildren and with their children, because the grandchildren are always listening in, right? When they are discussing important topics, then the grandchildren see, oh, it's important that I learn things, right? In fact, grandparents can teach grandchildren lessons about life that they won't ever have time to get at school. I remember when I was homeschooling my children, I decided that we needed to go and read the histories of grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, and we needed to go interview our grandparents and talk to them about their lives and their experiences so that my children could have the benefit of learning the stories of the past, stories of war, stories of hippies and cultural revolutions and stuff from someone who actually experienced it. That is something that a grandparent can give that nobody else can really give to a grandchild. So share your stories. In fact, read stories to your grandchild. Don't just watch TV. That's a cop-out. It's too easy. And it turns over that teaching moment to somebody else and their agenda. So instead of trying to just keep the grandchildren happy, think in terms of teaching them something, and then you will be a very treasured person in their lives. I will always remember learning to quilt with my grandma. I remember sitting there out on her covered patio in the long summer days tying quilts. I remember stabbing myself, and I remember my grandpa coming over and doing medical care on my finger, right? I remember him teaching me how to fix it in a new way, and grandma teaching me how to be strong and keep sewing and how to do the sewing so that it would keep all the layers of the quilt together. Do you know what? I love doing quilts to this day. It makes me feel like I'm human more somehow, and it's because that was something that I learned from my grandma. Let's talk about social development. So the way that a grandparent interacts socially with the child and with their children and aunts and uncles and other people that might be around when the child is visiting or having time around grandma and grandpa actually make a difference in the way the child socially behaves. As you might have guessed, the main theme of this video is your example is everything. The way that you interact with other people at the store or at the hamburger shop when you're taking your grandchild there for a hamburger, those moments of interaction teach your child confidence. Oh, teach your grandchild. Those moments of interaction teach your grandchild to be confident, to talk with other people, to step out of their comfort zones. These are all very important life lessons that need to be learned, and grandparents are perfect people to push the child in that direction. Sometimes when parents are pushing a child to step out of the comfort zone, the child will push back against that, but the child may not push back against grandma and grandpa as much. And they may trust because of that security there. There was a great uncle, a great aunt and uncle who were kind of like another grandma and grandpa to me. And I remember going to an amusement park with this great aunt and uncle. And I was afraid. I was afraid to go on some of the scary big rides that would swing you high in the air or make you rush really fast through tunnels and things. It was scary to me. And I remember this great uncle who at the time was, in his late 70s. And he said, "Nicholeen, will you go if I go with you? I promise you I'll keep my arms around you the whole time. I'll keep you safe. Nothing will happen to you. Will you go if I go with you? I'll show you you can do it. I'll help you be strong." And I knew he would keep me safe. He was a strong cowboy. He could keep anybody safe. And he had his big cowboy hat. He took off his hat and left it on the side of the ride and held on to me instead. And after that, I knew that I could go on any ride if I was with Uncle Boot. That's what I called him. He was my Uncle Boot. That man from a different generation who cared about me like a grandpa cares about his grandchildren taught me how to be strong and that I could be safe and that I could look to him for safety and protection. I'll never forget that. What a great social lesson that I needed for all of those years of growing up. So now what about emotional development? So many people are concerned about the emotions that children are facing nowadays. There's so much anxiety, depression, suicide, anger, frustration, bullying. These are all things that relate to a person's emotional state. And there are also so many people who are struggling with things that are non-neurotypical just because of the way that they process on the inside. So how can grandparents lend support emotionally for their grandchildren? Well, one thing is always care. Be there as a caring person, a person they can talk to, a person that will listen, a person that won't judge, a person who will give advice, but in a way that is in a caring way, not in a way that's condescending or frustrating. You've been through life. You've experienced a lot, so there's nothing that bugs you, right? There's nothing that makes it so that you feel like you can't handle it. You've been through a lot as the grandparent. So then what you need to do is give that to them, the security that you have, so that they know they can get through their problems too. Share with them some of the things you experienced from your childhood. Share with them some of your hardships, some of the peer pressures that you had to not give in to. Sure, they were different, but they can learn from your experience, because what happened to you on the inside are some of the same things that are happening to them on the inside. The difference is, back when you were a child, people said, you can do this, anyone can do this, come on, buck up, have grit, get through it. But nowadays everybody says, oh no, you're falling apart, you can't do it, you're breaking, nobody's gonna like you. There is so much more pressure on the young people. They don't have anyone telling them how to have grit. They need you for that. They need you for that. That means you've got to have a good relationship. There's a lot of good communication. There are skills that you can even teach them in some of the key books that I have that teach children skills like how to accept no answers and accept consequences of life and disagree appropriately with people. These are key skills that your children and grandchildren, we all actually, need for success. And they are in this book, which, remember, I'm giving to you for free. So click on the link in the description below this video and get your free copy of this book today. You just have to pay a little bit for shipping so that we can get it to you. But I want to change the world. Grandparents, parents, grandchildren. And so I'm willing to give my most popular book away to people if it can make a difference in the relationships that people can have with each other, which I think it will. Click on the link and get your book today.